to my mom's and shower there. That's why I'm running a bit late and then doing all these things. So yeah, it's one of those days.
I mean, plumbing issues are terrible. So
aren't they though?
I don't even want to go into what we've dealt with.
It's one of those things when you own a house, it's a huge responsibility, and to have your own house and be reliable for your own problems, as they say.
Yeah.
Here it is. So
100%.
yeah, one thing after another though during Mercury retrograde. Never ends. Never.
I wasn't even aware we were in a retrograde. I'm glad you mentioned that. That explains so much.
Does it? You have been having any communication breakdowns?
I kind of feel like it's quantum states. Like if I pay attention to it, then yes. But if I'm blissfully unaware, then no. What kind of sage is this?
Just some white sage. I know how much the beasties hate it, so I always light it during my podcast now. The guys were like, just always light sage when you begin your podcast. I was like, all right, done. That can be part of my thing. Where the first 5 minutes, I'm always lighting sage.
Is it the yin yang mug today? Did you bring that one?
I looked in my cupboard and I saw it, and I think I know he's going to say something if I don't grab this mug. So I'm good.
You got it. Very good. Very good.
It's perfect for Mercury retrograde too,
Yeah.
You take the good with the bad and everything in between.
I'm going to queue up a image share or a screen share here. Let's see.
I was just telling Dr. Scott I'm going to smudge the hell out of this room today because I had dream state disturbances. I have all kinds of things breaking in my house. I'm like, oh no, you don't, Mercury retrograde. Like, no. Not playing
You're
around.
Smoke it right out.
Exactly. That's my fix for everything.
That's funny.
So
let me know if you can see what I've got.
Ooh,
are you able to see the presentation there?
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look who it is.
Yeah, look at that. So this is something I've been working on for a few weeks now. It's nothing I can dive too deeply into in the course of an hour, but I'd like to, lightly graze along the surface of the topic with your viewers today and see what they think. You ever have one of those moments where maybe you're reading something or you're thinking about something and suddenly you're just connecting the dots to like 6 or 7 other things, and you're like, that connection's been there the whole time, and I just now noticed it. Well, I had one of those moments, and I couldn't believe it. It took me so long to notice, but it did. But I guess I got there eventually, so here I am.
Yeah. Well, we all end up where we're meant to.
Yeah. I was reading a Dead Sea Scroll called the War Scroll, right? I wouldn't say it's called the War Scroll. It was actually, I believe, one of the first Dead Sea Scrolls that were found. All right. And the War Scroll, let me just move the presentation down here. The War Scroll is this overly precise, it's an overly descriptive attempt to talk about how the good guys are going to get into all sorts of strange battle formations. And then they go into lots of detail about the battle formations, and they're going to stick it to the bad guys, and the good guys are going to lose 3 times, and then the good guys are going to win 3 times, and then there's going to be one last battle where the good guys finally win. And it's this book that sounds a lot like the book of Revelation, right?
Yeah.
It's just if you're, I can understand why if you're reading this, and maybe you're not sort of esoterically in tuned or inclined, this book would totally escape your notice. Like it talks about war, death, destruction, blood, all types of, almost biblical type of things in this War Scroll book. But as I started reading it, it just occurred to me that, man, it just sounds a lot like the book of Revelation. So that led me to the next dot that I connected, and to the next dot that I connected, and I eventually got to Dolores Cannon's teachings on the New Earth, right? So it's weird because that's kind of where I started with all this, of course, with the Dolores Cannon stuff and being a QHHT practitioner. And then, I've always been into these Dead Sea Scrolls, and I just happened to be reading one, and I'm like, wait, there's a link here. There's a link between Dolores's teachings on the New Earth and the stuff that's written in Revelation and the stuff that's written in this War Scroll. And so that's the theory that I want to propose today, is that the book of Revelation and Dolores Cannon's New Earth teachings, they all preserve this esoteric thread that weaves through each of them. And it's been transmitted across thousands of years, and it was written in this overly symbolic manner, only for those that have the ears to hear and the eyes to see it. And my first thought was the skeptic was, well, why? Why be so cryptic about it? And then I very quickly tossed that aside, and I'm like, well, remember the times, remember the Inquisition, just remember early cryptography, writing messages in code. So someone who thinks in spiritual terms, like much of your audience, could read these books and see something completely different than your regular scholar reading these Dead Sea Scrolls. And my theory is that it's written for those that are more spiritually inclined, as your audience is. So if you'll permit me, I'll jump into it.
Yeah, please. This is fascinating. People have said we're in the times of prophecy right now, and that certain things are pre-written, so to speak. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing how things correlate.
Yeah. So we'll do our best to sort of get through this in a short time we have today. But to summarize what the War Scroll is, guys, the War Scroll is this document that was found in one of the clay jars at near Qumran, and it was found between 100 BCE and 50 BCE. I'm sorry, 50 CE, right? So you're right in that sort of biblical time period, right?
Yeah.
I say biblical, but what I really mean is the New Testament time period is when a lot of these events allegedly perhaps took place, right? So we're right there. The person who wrote this, who knows? It's normally attributed to the Essenes, which rings my alarm because I love studying about the Essenes. And if any of your audience has ever read Jesus and the Essenes, you know that there's a lot going on at that Qumran compound, probably more than mainstream archaeology would like to admit. So anyway, that's who wrote the War Scroll. It was discovered at Cave 1 in Qumran, and we already talked about why they probably encoded it. It was to preserve this esoteric knowledge. All right, jumping back up here. The book is a apocalyptic military manual. It outlines a divinely sanctioned war between the Sons of Light, which they say is Israel, and the Sons of Darkness. So it's a war between light and dark. That's the battle this book outlines, and it gives specific battle formations, ritual purity laws, and you have all these notes about these musical notes about frequency, trumpet blasts.
I was just thinking about the trumpets.
Yep. And after a series of alternating victories and defeats, the Sons of Light are ultimately victorious through divine intervention. The scroll ends with a sanctified new order, with the righteous dwelling in peace under God's rule. in a purified world governed by spiritual law, which sort of implies an esoteric victory over darkness, both within and without. Now, if I didn't also have Revelation to fall back on and Dolores Cannon's teachings, perhaps the connection would be a little less obvious to the sort of esoteric spiritual victory here at the end, because they do a really good job of trying to bore the reader in this book. All right. So anyway, that's the War Scroll. It's a military manual with dual meanings. Beneath the language of this blood, death, and destruction is an allegory of purification. It describes a soul level type of initiation in this document. And the light being the ultimate inner covenant keeper, and the darkness representing falsehood or ego. And the scroll instructs the elect in sacred alignment and just tactics. So it is just as it sounds. It is just this manual of how the light eventually wins over the dark. My take on this is that this is talking about the battle within. It's not like real battle formations, even though the scroll talks about battle formations. It's really talking about the battle each of us has within, with our inner divinity and our inner darkness, right?
There it is. Yep.
That's what this book is talking about. That's what Revelation is talking about. That's what Dolores Cannon, thankfully, in her New Earth teachings, did not have to write it in such an encoded way. So if we could remove the code from Revelation and from the War Scroll, we'd have pretty much what Dolores wrote about at the end at the end of her book, in Convoluted Universe Book 2, which describes, it's an entire chapter on what the New Earth is. So I'm going to get into that. But that's just a brief teaching on what the War Scroll is. You can access it for free online, many places. It's not a great read. But if you're esoterically inclined, you'll little alarm bells will be going off while you're reading it. Like, oh, okay. Oh, yes. And that is the thing, Lara. That's the thing. Someone like folks in your audience versus, a normie could read this book and walk away with two completely different experiences, right? And that was why,
especially if you aren't aware about the way that life is, because I mean, we're already in it. I've seen it even vamping up. Like, I mean, when I first started doing clearings 18 months ago, I had way less things popping up in people's, you know what I mean? Like, it's intensifying to a grand degree. Like, they're talking about legions. The legions are already here. They're just invisible. You can't see them, but we're going to start seeing them. And you can sense them. You can feel them. And they're getting more and more intense and more desperate. So we're already in the middle of a holy war and nobody knows it.
Yes. And trying to describe that phenomenon to, someone that maybe doesn't have eyes to see or ears to hear is a difficult thing.
You think you're not, I mean, you're dealing with it invisible. Yeah, they're invisible now, but they won't be for long. That's the whole point of the 5D shift. We're going to have to come to terms with these things because they've been part of our reality this entire time. It's just that we have allowed them to lurk in the darkness without having any awareness as to their, their presence. And now it's like everything is coming to a head, and you can see it everywhere if you know how to look.
It's a great point. Well, even if you just attend, a Southern Baptist church reading on Revelations, the congregation expects to look up in the sky and see Jesus riding a horse with a flaming sword, right? You can sort of start to see why perhaps things were written in an encoded way for a certain subsect of spiritually inclined people. The message isn't necessarily for the uninitiated. It's for the initiated. It's for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. I'm not bragging because not the message isn't all positive. It's not like we're in some secret club or anything, and it's not like there's not going to be struggles. It's more like everything comes together at the end of times in this culmination of what Dolores Cannon will call finally like the shift to the new earth, right?
Yeah.
And I'll get into that in a minute. But first, we got to get through Revelation. So since we talked about the War Scroll, the next thing up is the Revelation. Now, maybe some of your audience hasn't read this book. Highly recommended. You could probably read it in an hour, right? It's like, 25, 26 chapters or something like that. It's not really that long. And if you just read it and just think to yourself, okay, it's not about all this war, death, and destruction and blood running in the streets. It's not really about that. That's just the window dressing. There's a message behind those things. It'd be interesting to see, some of the comments later, what some of your audience might think about it. But to summarize, Revelation is a Christian apocalyptic vision that normally is attributed to an author whose name was John of Patmos. And let me jump forward here real quick. John of Patmos lived in this, if it was John of Patmos, he lived right around this same time period. This book was written 95 to 96 CE. So we're only about 45 years after the time period when the War Scroll was written. So we're still kind of in the same era. All right. We're still kind of in that same epoch, just a little bit later. If it was John of Patmos, he got exiled to this prison island, this Isle of Patmos. He got exiled there for preaching. Rome had had enough of it by this time. And so they just shipped him off to this island. While he was there, he had this apocalyptic vision, which what became the book of Revelation. There's also a different theory. It wasn't John of Patmos. It was actually the Apostle John. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this theory, he would have lived at the same time, again, as his life would have been during when the War Scroll was written and during when the book of Revelation was written. So he was there. The Apostle John could have been there for both times. All right.
Yeah.
My take on this is that Revelation is quite obviously written in apocalyptic symbolism, if you're not of the literal bend when you read the Bible. And you think of these things as more allegorical or metaphorical. That is how Revelation is written. But not to belabor the point. Revelation itself, it opens with messages to 7 churches. I remember reading these messages to churches in grade school because I went to a Christian grade school, right? And they really thought that these were physical messages to physical churches. Okay? All right. So when I say that, I'm not joking when I say that there are groups of religious folks that take this literally. Okay? And I remember thinking, if this is the end of the world, why are we concerned about messages? I mean, just look up in the sky if you're reading the book. Aren't you going to see a guy with a flaming white sword? Why are we writing letters to churches? And why is there only 7? Wouldn't there be thousands if this is a worldwide phenomenon? None of it made sense to me as I was in middle school thinking about this. And I'm like, okay, 7 churches. But now
I thought of the chakras too, Matt. Yeah, Matt says chakras, inner temple.
You're getting ahead of me. Yes.
Sorry. The same job that Matt did. High five, Matt.
High five. High five. That's just one of these sort of allusions, not illusions, not IL, but allusions to sort of New Age spirituality, those with eyes to see and ears to hear. These are chakra system references. I'll get to that in a minute. But the book itself, it progresses through these symbol-laden prophecies involving 7 seals, 7 trumpets, plagues, and a great cosmic war that plays out between divine and demonic forces. and it sounds a lot like the War Scroll. There's a battle between the Lamb and the Beast, and the fall of Babylon is an event that happens, and there's a final judgment there, and it marks a spiritual climax in the world. And in the end, evil is cast out, and there's a, quote, new heaven and new earth, where God dwells among the people. There's no more death, sorrow, or pain. We all live happily ever after. The end. Now, again, just like the War Scroll, this is, in my opinion, describing the inner battle, right? The seven churches, the seven trumpets, the plagues, the fall of Babylon, symbolizing the collapse of your old belief systems that were thrust on you by the earth, and the welcoming of a new spiritually centered, higher self-centered belief, right? This is what is encoded in Revelation. And, you know, where the sort of remarkable thing is, in my opinion, it's not really that hidden. Like, you read this, and it's not a stretch for even a normie to say, well, these are metaphors. But the fact that this even really made it into the Bible in the way that it did, either someone was asleep at the wheel at those ecumenical councils, or I have to think, if they would have known what was encoded in here, they would have been like, yeah, we're going to leave that one. That one doesn't make it, because, you know, it's talking about the collapse of an empire, and Rome is an empire, and we don't want that, so we're gonna leave that out, right? So anyway, it's sort of amazing that one escaped their notice.
The censors missed that one, yeah.
I didn't hear. What was that?
I said the censors missed that one.
Yeah, they missed it. They missed it. It's written in this sort of deeply symbolic and allegorical language, where the material world is a veil. The true battle is unseen, right? At least that's my take on it. The true battle in Revelation is unseen to the regular eyeballs. You have the beast in Revelation describing the ego or the empire, and the dragon must fall before Christ consciousness and the new earth can be revealed. So there's this huge inner battle that's going on in Revelation, which again probably isn't news to a lot of your audience, but I think for the average person, knowing that there is a lot of information that's just encoded in here that's corroborates a lot, not just of what Dolores Cannon says, but what so many other great esoteric teachers have said, is reassuring to me. That there isn't, like, this isn't a new message, right? This is an old message. This is the oldest message that there is. It goes way back, even before the War Scroll, probably, and that the real message, the real fight, is the battle within. And the real struggle is to awaken Christ consciousness within yourself.
Bingo. That's exactly what we're all boiling down to, is that awakening within ourselves.
Right.
Yep.
So that brings me to Dolores Cannon's teachings on the New Earth. Well, what did Dolores's clients say about this? When your audience is done listening to this, they should probably run, not walk, and get Convoluted Universe Book 2. It's
my favorite out of all of them. I love Book 2. Yes. Phenomenal.
Convoluted Book 2. At the end of it, there's a whole chapter on the New Earth. Mm-hmm. And Dolores did us such a great service in adding this into the book, because it is.
Oh, I've got chills. I think she's here right now. She likes what you're saying, Dr. Scott. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I feel her energy right now. I love you, Dolores. We love you so much. She's like, oh, I love it, Dr. Scott. Keep going. Thank you for mentioning me.
Yeah, we do love her.
Yeah, we do.
She did us all a favor in just writing this in plain English, minus all of the need for allegorical and metaphorical language, just writing it all down plainly, right? In a way that probably John of Patmos wishes he could have written it, in a way that the authors of the War Scroll wish they could have written it. Dolores actually did that, and she did it and published it, and it wasn't censored, at least not widely censored, not like Rome, right? Anyway, so to get into what Dolores says about this, again, I'm talking about book 2. There's a chapter called The New Earth, and clients describe a sort of dimensional split of the earth as humanity approaches a vibrational tipping point, where the souls must choose to either remain in the old earth, which is marked by fear, war, density, or they can choose to ascend to the new earth. Now, let me pause here. Anyone ever watched that old 90s cartoon, Pinky and the Brain? So
are you thinking what I'm thinking, Pinky?
Yeah.
I quote that show all the time, actually.
I love that show. And so there's an episode of Pinky and the Brain where, if those who don't know, Brain would always try and take over the world every night. And every night his plot would get foiled by his trusted partner, Pinky, his own help, right? Pinky was kind of an idiot, and he would just sort of, stupid his way through the show, and he would mess everything up for the Brain. And so the plot on one night was to Pinky, or I guess the Brain, got fed up that none of his schemes were working. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to build my own planet. And so he built his own Earth out of paper mache, to scale. Like it was a complete new Earth. And he built this paper mache Earth. But when they moved over to the new Earth, nobody was there. And so Pinky was bored. There was no one to lord over, no one to rule over. And so they concocted this scheme to get people to move from the old Earth to the new Earth. And what was the mechanism? Pinky came up with t-shirts, free t-shirts. So they offered free t-shirts, and everybody moved to the new Earth. And as soon as everybody moved, a comet struck the old Earth and destroyed it. And so now everyone's on the new Earth, and Brain has the exact same problem that he had the night before. So anyway,
they don't make cartoons like they used to.
No.
Love it.
No. But, unlike the show where they offered free t-shirts to get everybody to move to the new Earth, in Dolores, it's a choice. It's an alignment with frequency. It's a way of living. It's a way of living in inner space that aligns you with the new Earth.
Yes.
And folks can either choose to remain in the old Earth or move to this new fifth dimensional reality of love, unity, Christ consciousness, instant manifestation, inner purification, living with folks that aren't weighed down by karma. So there's not all this heavy stuff that we are used to here in the 3D. That's the idea behind what Dolores has written in that ending chapter of Convoluted Universe Book 2. So again, I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but folks should get out and read that.
You haven't read Convoluted Universe yet. You're missing out. It's my favorite series that Dolores ever did. I mean, she's done so many books. She wrote 23 books, and they're all beautiful in their own way. I mean, even the Nostradamus series, which pickled my brain a little bit, you got to appreciate how much effort she took into trying to quantify all of this. I mean, we're dealing with timelessness and multi-layered timelines and all kinds of different, it's just, she tried to make sense out of chaos a little bit for us. And we're very grateful because of how much effort she put into it. It really does help you to understand I call it like the college level versions of Dolores's work. Because if you start with something like Between Death and Life, she does kind of gently walk you through certain aspects of human consciousness that are very important. But then when you get to the Convoluted Universe series, that's all about just basically what a confuddled, confusing mess the universe really is when you try to look at it through human eyes. Because the way that we look at everything, we confuse it all and we get it all like messed up. So she was trying to make it very simple to understand the way that reality works. And for those who would like to know more about the hologram reality that we exist in, to understand that we are all one consciousness and that consciousness is split thousands of times, I mean, billions and trillions of times over. I mean, there's so many different things that you can explore through those books. I mean, it's just endless.
Totally agree.
And they're so thick too. I mean, they're like each one, there's like 5 and each one is like that. Yeah, just to show them how big it is. Like Dolores was not messing around. That's just one of them. See, like it's just, it's a buffet of knowledge. We'll put it that way.
Right. Well, the Dolores is describing not like this epic battle in Armageddon where there's a bunch of blood left on the battlefield at the end. That's not what Dolores is describing at all. No. What she's describing is a separation by frequency, where those ready will inhabit a sort of a new radiant way of life, a new radiant world, if you will, while others will sort of stay behind to continue learning. The ending is a happy one with both individual and collective evolution. Much like Revelation's new heaven and new earth. You know, after all the death and bloodshed, you get a new heaven and new earth where Jesus wins. Encoded in that is the same concept here that Dolores is talking about when you read these things, because, you know, folks often depict Jesus holding this, you know, flaming sword in Revelation. He's coming back as the conqueror. But even Revelation says that he's got the sword of truth coming out of his mouth. Right?
There it is.
Right? So like that means something different to us. Right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
They don't often paint him with the sword of truth coming out of his mouth. You know, what could that mean? Weird.
Well, they do say the truth can cut through all sorts of different barriers and blockages, huh? You just getting, this is the awakening period where people are starting to recognize not only the truth about our history and our reality, but also the inner truth.
Agreed.
Being able to find that knowledge within ourselves. They always tell us to go within.
Right.
Ooh. Wow.
Well, now that you guys have got this like primer on what all 3 books say, I'm not going to go through every one of these things, but these are the things that those books have in common. So on the left here, you see there's this theme, right? We have a theme here. For example, there's a cosmic battle of light and darkness in both the War Scroll, in Revelation, and in Dolores canon. There's a purification of the elect in the War Scroll, in Revelation, in Dolores canon. There's a sealed remnant and chosen ones. You know, these are the 144,000 in War Scroll, Revelation, Dolores canon. There's esoteric knowledge and initiation. The thing about number 4 here, this esoteric knowledge and initiation, in the War Scroll, they talk about the sons of Levi shall teach according to the secrets of the times and the exact law. Well, okay, what was being kept secret? It was this knowledge that Dolores is writing about, this eventual frequency shift. And who are the sons of Levi? If you studied anything about the 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of Levi were the ones often put in charge of the ritual and in charge of their rituals. They weren't granted land like the other 11 tribes. They were sort of the administrative staff and the scholars of the tribes. Okay, so when it says the sons of Levi will teach, that's sort of an encoded way written. Remember, during the proper time. Remember the time period that the War Scroll was written in. It's saying that the teachers will teach, essentially. And in Revelation, you know, you're saying, here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. So this is the teaching. The people like to talk about this one, the mark of the beast, the 666 on the forehead or on the hand. as soon as I read that a long time ago, I was thinking, okay, it's weird that there's 3 sixes. And at about that same time in my life, I was studying, stuff about Schrodinger and Tesla. And, Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, understand 3, 6, and 9. Okay. Well, if there's a 6, and a 6 on your forehead, isn't that funny that there's 3 6s and the 6 is divisible by 3? And if you turn the 6s upside down, there's 9. That's just sort of my working theory. It was an allusion to the 369 fractal holographic universe that we're talking about. And the esoterically inclined can sort of divine that matrix code. More on that later. Dolores thankfully didn't have to teach in that sort of metaphorical language. She said, these truths come through hypnosis because they're buried beneath conscious awareness. Only those ready to hear them will. Okay. Moving on.
You know what stands out the most for me here is that number 144. I've seen it absolutely everywhere. I was even messaging Carolyn because it was funny. I was chatting with Zach and I'm like, why do I keep seeing 144 everywhere? Absolutely everywhere right now. I've seen it 20, 30 times a day. And Zach was like, go ask Carolyn. She'll know why. And I was like, okay. So Carolyn's guides are angelic. And she works very closely with Yeshua for this reason. So I'm like, all right, what's going on here? So I asked Carolyn, and she tells me, she's like, oh yeah, this is right now, like, there's like this group of souls that have come to Earth right now to enact change, to bring in the new Earth. And if you're seeing 144, that is a sign that you are one of those people. It doesn't mean that there's only 144,000 of them. I feel that is a mistranslation. I feel that number holds a certain frequency code. And when you recognize that frequency code, you see, it's like you get little mini activations here and there. It's like a breadcrumb, like you're finding your way back to the path by noticing the breadcrumb. So something about that number, like it's driving me nuts. I would love to have more insight on it. Carolyn gave me this beautiful, like, little explanation about it. I should bring her back on the podcast for this, Carolyn. Love you, Carolyn. We should totally just talk about this number because everybody's seeing it. It's popping up out of the woodwork. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
That number is so has so many different meanings. 144,000. Just consider the math of it. First of all, the 144,000, 12 times
12, yeah,
that's 144. And then in like Kabbalah, or in these old scrolls, the number 1,000 might as well be the entire world population, because whenever it talks about the thousands, they were talking about the multitudes. So 144,000 meant like the multitudes, right? So it meant everybody, or it meant like the chosen among everybody. Yes. There's also 12 time zones on Earth, and in sacred geometry, you could have a Maharishi effect if you have so many different people meditating over each time zone. You could have 12 people meditating over each time zone in each of the time zones, and that the net effect of the 12 and the 12 is 144,000 fold. In Revelation, the 144,000 have their white robes of purification. Right. Well, we know what that means. We know what they're trying to say. You're not going to wear white robes and go into a bloody battle, are you? Right. If you're wearing white robes, you are sanctified, purified. You've done the inner work. Right. That's who the 144,000 are. And now they're leading other multitudes into the fold. So anyway, I could go on that for a while, but
I love it because I can feel it. And I think that if you were to meditate on that number, just write it down and meditate on it and see what it means to you and see if anything comes up to your subconscious from that. And I'm telling you, there's going to be some kind of a realization. I've had it several times over where everything is where it's meant to be right now. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. And I feel like, that when you see 1111, that's it's often a sign like, oh, everything is going right on track like it's supposed to. everything is in alignment. I feel like that is being intensified with the 144. Like it's like that, but it's also, it's like letting you know that everything is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. That's at least how I interpret it.
Agreed.
So,
there's little hugs from the universe. All these different numbers that we see all the time, 11 11, 12 12, they'll have their own little different meetings. But 144,000 or 144 popping up is pretty cool. Right?
Yeah.
The sevenfold structure of the chakra system. Of course, we talked about how that appears in the War Scroll: 7 priests, 7 trumpets, 7 formations of battle, 7 cycles of purification. This is overly specific for a battle manual, right? Do you think every army had 7 priests standing by and 7 people to play trumpets and they all knew 7 formations? No. Okay. And in Revelation, we got 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. What is it they're trying to tell us? Could it be something with the chakra system, maybe? And that's the battlefield where the inner battle takes place, perhaps, right? And Dolores said, essentially, you sort of have to do the inner work and balancing your chakras, if you're ever going to be or want to make the jump to the new earth, right? So anyway, you ultimately have to win the spiritual battle within if you're going to be on one side of the frequency shift or the other. And the frequency shift is, we can debate on what that means. Is it a new paper mache earth? Is it or is it just a way of being and a way of existing? We could argue about that all day. But the point is that there's a spiritual battle within to fight either way. And that is sort of the central message between all the books. And guys, that I think is about all I can get into today on the connection between these 3. I was going to use the word wonderful, but I hesitate to call them wonderful because I think they're wonderful if you look at them all as together rather than look at any one of them on their own. They're not that wonderful if you just look at one of them on their own, but together you can finally see the message and sort of decode the inner meaning. And so that was my theory, is that all these books are linked intentionally over time, across millennia, to tell us in this day and age and the day and age to come after that the battle is within. It's not with some flaming sword on a guy riding a horse in the sky. It's not that.
I mean, it's open to interpretation, obviously, and if certain things resonate, but you can see certain things that are popping up that are, it's like divine providence. Like they knew these things were going to happen. They knew.
Absolutely.
And it could have been thousands of years ago. Yeah. But how did they know? Well, time is not, what we think it is. And there are many occasions where we have different timelines to choose from. And there are timelines where this might not happen. There are timelines where it's going to be more favorable for the entities because there'll be timelines where we get plunged into darkness. And there are other timelines where we manifest everything that we've been hoping and desiring for thousands of years. And if you're going to be actively choosing which timeline you're going to be going into, you do that through your research, through your vibration, through the love that you share with others, by increasing your frequency. So a lot of people are concerned about ending up on one of these unfavorable timelines, but I don't think that there's anything that you have to be concerned about as long as you keep your eye on the prize, so to speak. You just keep your eye on the new earth and what you are trying to manifest here on earth, and you will have it. We're going to create it together.
Even in the darkest of timelines, eventually all souls go back to source. Right. So eventually we wind up right back where we all began. Some take a longer, more convoluted path than the others. But eventually, everything is one again. And that's the good news of all these books, is that, no matter how long it takes you to get there, you do get there eventually.
I just had a fun thought, Dr. Scott. Maybe
No.
you're actually, maybe this is your research from thousands. Maybe you were Patmos. Maybe you're studying your old works, and he's like, all right, I'm back. I got things to finish now. I want to make sure that all of this brilliance is brought to the light.
That's funny, because like if it was me or an aspect of me, it'd be, I could see being frustrated the first 2 times where it's like, oh, here come the Romans. I better hurry up and encode this before they get me. And then,
exactly.
And then the second time around, it's like, oh, well, you went to a prison island, so have fun there, and
I could definitely at least see you as a Knights Templar. There are definitely times in your life where, I mean, in different multiple realities, I'm sure, where you were pushing this knowledge forward and being like, hey, don't forget, this is really important.
That's funny. Yeah. It's a big universe. Why not? I think there's aspects of us in all of that. But your audience, they likely, if there is anyone that has eyes to see and ears to hear, it's folks that it's in your audience, right?
Yeah,
and those they associate with. So I feel like I'm talking to the choir a bit, but nonetheless, I maintain my theory that these books they do share a link, and that link is for us. So even if the outside world, throws darts at the theory and tries to tell us that, no, this is about religion and this is about being saved and there's going to be a big bloody battle, no matter what we say, they won't have eyes to see or ears to hear it. But I don't feel like that's an issue with your audience there.
No, everybody's ready for this. I feel like this is the time of remembrance. We're not even learning technically. We're relearning and remembering. So if it resonates with you, this is probably something that you already kind of had an inclination towards in the first place. And I really love the fact that we are kind of taking the book of Revelation and putting a positive spin on it, because it's always used for doom and gloom and threats and, and scaring people. It was my least favorite chapter you're growing up. Every time they mentioned anything in the book of Revelation, I was like, oh no, like I don't even want to hear it. Don't even want to think about it. And so it's nice to have a new look, a new perspective on it.
I appreciate that. Because I really feel like the author wrote it for us, but maybe encoded it a little too well. So the first time we read it, we're like, oh, I don't want to read this, but I think it had to be written that way so that it would avoid detection, right? And I think that's the same thing about the War Scroll. It had to be written in a certain way to avoid the detection by the Sanhedrin or by Rome.
Well, even just the name, the War Scroll, like there's everything carries a vibration, including the name.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you so much for this, Dr. Scott. I love all the new insights you always bring us. And it's like going back to school, but as a recovering Christian, it's something that's actually enjoyable and not triggering. So thank you very much for the way that you delve deep into this knowledge.
I love doing it. And I also love the term recovering Christian. And in a weird way, and I'm sure you'll resonate and your audience resonate, but it feels like I've been able to recover the real Christianity through studying Dolores Cannon and linking her teachings to what I thought I knew about religion, right? Like I feel more Christian now than I ever did as growing up in a Christian church and going to Christian schools. I
know exactly what you mean, because I am a technically, if you were to twist my arm, I would admit it. I am a Christian now. Why? Because Yeshua is one of my bros. I talk to him all the time. He helps out with clearings all the time. He was doing healing for me the other day. Like, he's like a good friend now. Of course I know he's real.
And you have a good experience of him, and an experience that a lot of people maybe don't relate to or understand, but that's real for you. And I think for so many of us, it's the same. It's a different relationship now than it was, learning about it in middle school, right?
Exactly. And just to highlight what Ray said, we're way past thinking Jesus is coming back as a person. Well, he's already here. He doesn't need to come back in a physical vessel. He's busier now than he was as a human. There's no need to take a human body anymore. He's very busy doing work as it is.
And there's multiple channels for Yeshua now, and there's easy access to him in this age, and lots of different ways.
So the funny thing is they keep saying he's coming back, and I always tell them that he's been here the whole time.
He never left.
What do you mean he's coming back? He's been here. He's been working his tail off this whole time, trying to get you guys to pay attention and be more Christian-like. So, like, are you paying attention is the question. Because a lot of people, if they think he's coming back, they're not even aware he's here right now, paying attention to what you're doing. Carolyn says, I didn't believe until he came channeling through me in a spare room. Yeah, exactly. You need a personal experience with him to know what you're getting into. And once you feel him, once you feel his energy, I mean, I call it a bliss out, where he basically was like, here, feel this. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, like, oh my God. Like, that's the only way to explain it. Your whole body starts to tingle, and you can feel it in every fiber of your being that he is real. I mean, once you've had that, there's no denying you're a Christian, technically. That's why I say if you twist my arm, I'll admit it. Because, I mean, of course I'm not going to deny it. He is real, 100%. You can talk to him as a friend. You call him in anytime you need and say, hey, Jesus, can we talk? He's like, all right, I'm coming. What do you need? Like, that's just how quick and supportive he is. And yet people don't even know it.
With all the works that he did when he was in the flesh, in a very real way, he was Neo. He was Neo in the Matrix, doing the things that he did. And now that he's across on the other side, now he's more like Morpheus. Now he's looking for the next Neos, right? So I don't know why I always relate everything back to the Matrix, but it just seems to be a thing that I do.
I mean, it fits,
I guess. And if anything, the church, they have sort of adulterated and degraded Yeshua's teachings. And then they bundled those up and gave them to us as truth. And so anyone that has a bad taste in their mouth for Jesus, even though that wasn't his name, anyone that has a bad taste in their mouth, I would just urge to reconsider where that's coming from. And it's probably pointing to Sunday school and overly strict church functions and things like that miss the message that he was trying to preach. And again, now, thankfully, through Dolores Cannon and the works of so many other people, you can sort of reconnect the dots back to the true doctrine the true doctrine of universal love, brotherhood, sisterhood, and ascension, and overcoming your stuff and fighting the inner battle, and then eventually winning the inner battle, and then graduating from this plane, right? That's what these books are describing.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for that. That's a wonderful perspective to have, especially for people that have kind of had a Bible shoved down their throat their whole lifetime, like I have. Like growing up as a born-again Christian, it was intense. And the fear that they push on you and the punishments that they have and the strictness of everything, you just realize so much when you grow up and you start to recognize the true Yeshua and how different he is. If only they knew how wrong they were, if only they knew the things that they preach are absolute polar opposites to what he would actually say, especially about all the hateful stuff about gay people and all the other things. Like, Yeshua is the most lovable person you'll ever meet. So to think that he would ever say anything negative about anyone, he doesn't even judge pedophiles, and they're what we consider to be the worst of the worst in our society. And I've done clearings on these people, and he's come in and loved them just the same. So, I mean, everybody deserves love. Everybody deserves acceptance. Everybody deserves healing. And he is he's the perfect person to call in if you are any one of those things. I mean, if you're just trying to heal your past or move forward, anything. I mean, he's one of the best people that you can call in for help. So never feel that you're not important enough to call him in. I've had people be like, oh, I can't talk to him directly like that. Yeah, absolutely. Call him in, pray to him, whatever it is. God, can you imagine? Somebody told me this 10 years ago that I'd be saying these words. I'd have to pinch myself. But it's true. Prayer is very powerful. And that's why every religion in the world uses it. So make sure that you're using it.
My humble opinion is he would be the first to disagree with the church's teachings on him. And he would agree with any of you that take issue with it, right? Because that's not really what his message was. And when it comes to the judgmental stuff, a lot of that is in the Old Testament. There's not much Yeshua in the Old Testament of the Bible. The New Testament's where you'll find, the teachings of Jesus, right? But in the Old Testament, there's a group of scholars that continuously debate whether or not the Old Testament should have even been included in the canon, because these two books, it's like taking Sleepless in Seattle and merging it with From Dusk Till Dawn and saying it's one book, it's one movie, right? Like these two things are apples and oranges. They do not belong together at all. And so, a sort of divorce is needed of the New Testament from the Old Testament, just for starters, let alone the content that is in the Old Testament that is like, slay all the witches and
they say the Tegetans, my starseed peoples, they told us that that the Old Testament is actually the New Testament, that the New Testament was actually the older documents that they rewritten and then turned it into the new, but it was actually, that's the older, and that Nero and somebody else, some of the Romans were written completely. They were the ones that wrote the Old Testament.
Well, that tracks if you just think about the weird chronology of events, because, through Dolores, we learn that there's lots of ancient civilizations, not just Atlantis. There's a lot of pre-Atlantean civilizations, and they would have had to have had this belief in some shape or form that everything is about universal love and brotherhood. Even though they eventually collapsed and lost the message, that message would have survived through the times, eventually up through the flood and beyond, and into the world as we know it. So the idea that the New Testament is the actual old excuse me, the Old Testament is the New Testament. That tracks, because there really is only one message, and that's the message of universal love and brotherhood for everybody. That tracks. But then when you get all these other strange rules about who to kill and who not to kill, who to enslave, when to kill all the babies and when not to kill all the babies, like that's
that. So Roman, sorry. But that sounds so Roman to me.
That's obviously a newer, chronologically speaking, invention than this older idea of universal love and brotherhood and sisterhood.
Yeah.
So
but that is why, and this is something that we're working to heal right now, this is why they had to do so much genocide to control that knowledge. Look at the Cathars, and they murdered 1 million people in the 1200s to kind of keep a lot of this under wraps, because the Cathars knew all this. They were already aware. They were preaching this. That's why they called themselves the good Christians, because they were actually living by the original teachings, which was technically the New Testament. So all of the, going against the Vatican and going against Rome, that is what led a lot of people to be like, okay, that doesn't resonate. Like I resonate more with what the Cathars, because they preach love and acceptance and healing and new perspectives and equality. And then you get the Vatican that's all like, no, burn, kill, like slay, make, like it's just, people were very much, they had to come in and basically kill everybody. That was the only answer they had for all of that. There was no argument. There was no, hey, why don't you just come our way? There was just like, you're going to do what we say or we're going to kill you. They wanted to wipe that out completely. And they did, down to the last man.
The funny thing is that, there's thought police in every generation. And, in Yeshua's time, there were the Sanhedrin, and shortly after his time, it was the Roman officials and those in the ecumenical councils. But we've always had thought police that would kill you for thinking the wrong thing.
Yep.
And I would just argue that, you know, if you ever run afoul of the thought police, then what you run afoul of is the truth. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You stumbled too closely to the truth. And I think that's our cross to bear, if I could use a euphemism in this day and age, is we have to overcome the constant sort of thought police that are always here.
We certainly do. I'm going to share your link because you've already got people in the comments saying they want a hypnosis session with you. How exciting. Dr. Scott is a phenomenal hypnotherapist. And I think that honestly, for those of you who feel that you have some deeply rooted traumas from past lives, and especially if you feel they are religious, because there's a lot of persecution wounds right now, a lot of religious. I had somebody the other day that they basically were like, oh yeah, she was a major religious zealot in like five lifetimes in a row. She's still trying to heal that. So there's a lot of us that have carried this religious baggage with us for many, many, many lifetimes. And to be able to transmute that and to heal that and release it in this lifetime is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It's cleaning your slate. It's giving you a fresh start in a new beginning and perfect time for that opportunity.
You know, our religious baggage is not the fault of Yeshua. And I think that's one of the first things that people come to realize on this journey. You know, people don't leave the church over Jesus's teachings. They leave them over stuff in the Old Testament, right? And stuff that is so divisive. Anyway.
Thank you so much for everything you're doing for this community, Dr. Scott. We're very grateful.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And if anyone is interested in a hypnosis session,
next time you have a group hypnosis session, we're excited to join you.
Yeah. Actually, on August the 9th, I'm doing one. If anyone purchases a copy of the book and they, you know, if they get it from Amazon, paperback or hardback, and register on my Facebook page for that event, there's instructions. They can, you know, people that purchase the book can join a free group hypnosis session on August the 9th.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. Amanda says, now I want to watch Pinky in the Brain. That's funny.
That's some good TV.
Thank you for all the laughs and all the insight today. Lots of love, Dr. Scott. I hope you all have an amazing afternoon, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the solo chat. See you soon, everybody. Take care. Lots of love. Bye, everyone.